Pravit Moy Druzy. Hello, my friends. My name is Darren Gerdes. I'm just a professor trying to give you some context in the war in Ukraine. So I'm going to go back as far as Saturday, where a car bomb killed one and injured another. There was a pro-Kremlin writer in a Russian city. Russia calls NATO and the U.S. terrorists for that, but we don't know who is actually behind it. Seems like Ukraine would want to hurt the guy. Maybe FSB wanted to hurt the guy. We just don't know. And we don't know enough at this point on Saturday. And we'll see a little bit more on Sunday and Monday. Bakhmut still holds, and again, this is amazing. When I was doing a Q&A about 2 months ago, there was, is Bakhmut going to fall? And well, I don't see it falling yet, but it's possible. But no, it still holds. And even though Putin really wanted it as a prize for his speech on Victory Day, Bakhmut was still holding. Ukraine claimed to shoot down a hypersonic missile with Patriot missiles. Now, this was absolutely fascinating because Putin made a lot of noise about how the hypersonic missiles, the sixth-generation missiles, nothing could touch these missiles, and apparently Patriots can. So either the Patriots better than Putin thought, or the hypersonic missiles are not as good as Putin claimed, or some kind of combination of both. But that's what happened on Saturday, the 6th of May. On Sunday, the Russians were getting nervous about the Victory Day parade, and it's coming up, and after the drone attack over the past week, which the Kremlin called an assassination attempt, which really wasn't assassination, it was just, I don't know what it was exactly. I'm not sure who did it, but that was, if that was an assassination attempt, it was the worst assassination attempt ever. So it really wasn't. About the car bombing, Zakhar Prilepin is the name of the guy who was the target of the car bomb. He's a 47-year-old pro-Russian novelist, and Russia claimed that Ukraine was behind the bombing, and that does seem to make sense, but it could have been other people. It could have been somebody, it could have been his bookie, I don't know. Could have been FSB, could have been anyone. But he was a nationalist, pro-Russian novelist, and the Russian authorities seemed to think that it was the U.S. or NATO behind it, but they said both, which is kind of interesting. Russian authorities also said they fended off a drone attack in Sevastopol, and that's actually probably more legitimate. We know that the Ukrainians were attacking Sevastopol with drones. The Czech president was warning the Ukrainians don't rush into a counteroffensive, which is good wisdom. You want to have everything, all your ducks in a row before you move in. Prigozhin says he's been promised more ammunition, and now he'll stay in Bakhmut. And this has been a soap opera between Prigozhin and the military leadership, going back and forth. It's a will he, won't he. After slaughtering thousands of his own mercenaries, he was claiming he was going to pull out because they just weren't providing the ammo. But it does seem that they are providing the ammo. RT says that the U.S. launches a, quote, Ministry of Truth. Now, the Ministry of Truth is called the Foreign Malign Influence Center, and it's designed to counter other foreign state media narratives. And so they're making some hay of it. They don't like this. It's probably going to be very top-heavy on Russian narratives. And this article really caught my attention, and Russia is evacuating near Zaporizhia power plant. So civilians were ordered to leave, but there was also noise about how Russian troops were escaping addressed as civilians, according to the mayor. Now, just because it's according to the Ukrainian mayor, I discounted a little bit mentally that, okay, he could be overinflating it, but at the same time, if that's happening, that's very bad. I don't believe, and now again, this is not rock solid, credible kind of thinking. This is just my gut speculation, so it has very low credibility. But in my gut, I don't believe that the Russians will use a nuclear weapon, like a tactical weapon, on Ukrainian soil. I do believe, and again, this is only my gut. It has very low credibility, but this is what I think that the Russians would be like have an accident as Zaporizhia and be like, it wasn't us. I mean, you know how the Ukrainians, they were firing on it, or we just didn't have the manpower, or whatever else. And so that actually terrifies me. And I think it's not beyond them to do something like that. There were 35 Russian drones launched on Ukraine, and all 35 were claimed to be destroyed on Sunday. And that's wrapping up the news for Sunday. On Monday, it's Victory Day in Europe, and Ukraine, Zelensky talked about how, trying to tie it to a earlier United Europe Day or something along those lines, and he talked about how we destroyed evil together, and in the same way as we are now standing together against a similar evil with the Russians. He has a masterful way of tying what's going on in Ukraine to whoever his audience is, and he's right. I mean, they do need to stand united against this evil. But so they're celebrating like United Ukraine or United Europe Day or something, a similar kind of name, and that's fine. It just takes away the Victory Day kind of attention that Russia's trying to make noise about, because they want to talk about how we have defeated the Nazis. Um, Okay, Russia was also sending museum pieces into the war, but there's an article in the Guardian, I think it was, about how they're sending these terribly old tanks. But these terribly old tanks may actually be useful if you can position a tank somewhere, and then it can be just like work like artillery or something along those lines. It can still have an effect. It's just not. It's not a good thing to send that tank against other newer tanks. Ukraine says Prigozhin's shell hunger is untrue because they use 25,000 rounds per day. Again, it's Ukrainians saying that, so I would discount it slightly just because, the Ukrainians want to say, that they're doing these bad things. So there's a slight, but I think that they generally tell the truth. So, so Prigozhin's argument that they're just not getting enough ammo, I'm not sure, unless he has just overwhelming force, that he's going to ever think that there's enough ammo. Poland already handed over 10 MiG-29 fighters to Ukraine as of Monday, and that's awesome. Concerns grow about Zaporizhia's safety, and there's, again, those more claims that the Russian soldiers are evacuating. RT says that Ukraine cancels the traditional holiday of defeating Nazis because they shifted it from May 9th to May 8th. Their holiday, because while it's being subsumed within United Europe Day and kind of drowned out a little bit by so Victory Day and United Europe Day are being celebrated together. It's much ado about nothing. This article. Russia fires 60 Iranian drones at Ukraine on the eve of Victory Day. This is the way that Putin does this. Whenever there's like a big event coming up, or like during a NATO conference or a Ramstein conference or something along those lines, they fire lots of drones and missiles on Ukraine, on the civilian part, not at soldiers. And they do this just to terrorize, just to, but it doesn't work. And I just can't understand why they keep doing something that doesn't work. Okay, Tuesday, May 9th. This is Victory Day. Russia pared back its May 9th Day parade on the grounds that it was, and didn't have the March of the Immortal Regiment where they're walking through the streets holding up the sign or the picture of a loved one who fought in World War II. They canceled that on the grounds that there were safety issues. But if there were safety issues, they should have canceled the parade as well. But they didn't just cancel the parade. They had a parade, but they canceled other parades in what seems to be an effort to try to make the Moscow parade look bigger. But the Moscow parade had only 50 vehicles, including only one tank. And that led to all kinds of jokes like, hey, do you want to go see the Victory Day parade? No tanks. But there was one tank there. And most of the tanks are occupied in Ukraine. And his speech, Putin's speech, was absolutely amazing because he called the special military operation a war. And I'm like, he actually did use the language of a war, which means he should go to jail for 15 years if he was treated like any civilian. So yeah, there's that. Okay, Prigozhin still fighting with the military leadership in Bakhmut, and this was fascinating. On Victory Day, Prigozhin accuses the military, the 72nd Brigade, today lost, and I'm quoting, it's running because the 72nd Brigade today lost 3 square kilometers, and I lost about 5,000 people because it was a strategic bridgehead. So he's giving Ukraine this victory, or like this political victory, on May 9th. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating to watch that because he just has such hatred of the political establishment. And like Prigozhin, remember, has no military background to speak of. He is an entrepreneur, like, which is also fascinating. His political fighting with the military brass has to be reducing their combat effectiveness. So, okay, Britain is going to send long-range missiles to Ukraine. That's announced on Tuesday. That's huge. This is like so first it wasn't like you can't have these drones or you can't have these tanks, you can't have these jets. And what happened? So Poland is the first one to send the tanks. Well, okay, everybody can now send tanks, and nothing happened. And then you can't have jets. Well, Poland is sending jets, and nothing happened. You can't have these long-range missiles because that'll trigger, some response. And UK is sending these missiles, and it's not going to trip a red line. But Putin, I gotta give the guy credit, has, um, what's the word? He has deterred the West with nuclear threats for a long time. And again, we just didn't realize the emperor was wearing no clothes. He's been crying wolf, and nothing's going to happen with that. I don't think he'll use a nuclear weapon. He can't use a nuclear weapon and rejoin the community of nations. Okay, so that's where we were for Tuesday. Wednesday, Bakhmut is still holding the day after Putin wanted to have his victory lap in his speech that he never got. The Americans in a Pew Research poll see that the Russians are an enemy. And that's more true for people that see America involved in the world, and it's less true for those who want to be more isolationist. But still, and there's a slight slide, a few points, a few percentage point slide in that, but generally speaking, Americans see Russia as an enemy. Zaporizhzhia has, according to one article, a catastrophic lack of workers. And again, keep your eye on that. That is one thing about this war that absolutely terrifies me. If you're a praying person, pray that that does not happen. Pravda says that Ukraine tried to attack Moscow 3 times on Victory Day parade, but of course that's Pravda, which is Russian state media, so I would discount that, but it's probably a great political victory for their propaganda. Kremlin explains that it no longer speaks to Western media. So this fascinating article in RT, Dmitry Peskov explains, I no longer give interviews to the Western media because they just lie and twist things. And I'm thinking like, wow, that's coming from Dmitry Peskov. Ukraine is working on submarine drones. Now, that would be absolutely amazing if they could get a submarine drone to be attacking the port in Sevastopol. I wouldn't put it past them. The Ukrainians have been absolutely amazing in their ability to make things work. Zelensky talks about how Ukraine needs more time for a counteroffensive, and I think that's right. Like, don't do it until you are ready. You can reserve the time to when you want to strike. And he vows to give Russians an unpleasant surprise. Prigozhin says that that Russia's flanks in Bakhmut have been badly damaged, and again, they have lost some ground in Bakhmut days after the Victory Day parade where they were supposed to have it locked down. The UK there's more information about the UK sending these long-range missiles. These Storm Shadow missiles have a 155-mile range. That's roughly, as a rough cut, double the length of their current missiles, and that's going to have a significant impact. That's good. That will be, like, they talk about things being a game changer. Jets, having enough tanks, that's a game changer. Having enough jets, that's a game changer. This is a game changer as well. In South Africa, the U.S. ambassador has raised the alarm that Russian cargo ships were carrying weapons back to Russia, and that's going to get South Africa into a lot of hot water. They're going to have to choose which side they're going to be on, because they've been trying to play the neutral game, but if you're sending weapons, you're not really neutral, and they're not going to want to get into that kind of hot water, even though they're a BRIC, B-R-I-C, Brazil, Russia, India, C is China, and S is South Africa. They're one of those trading bloc nations, but still they don't want to get into not being able to trade with the rest of the world. Russian woman, this is absolutely amazing. Russian woman is sentenced in Russia for insulting note put on Putin's parents' grave. So, like, in the United States, this would be like uncool to put a note, say, on Biden's parents' grave or even Trump's parents' grave or whatever. The note said this: "Parents of a maniac, take him to your place. He causes so much pain and trouble. The whole world prays for his death. Death to Putin. You raised a freak and a killer." Now, maybe she's a little unbalanced. Maybe she's just trying to make a political statement, or maybe she's just trying to get something off her chest or whatever. Okay, Friday, there's an offensive in Bakhmut that's creating a Russian retreat, still ongoing. It's temporary, it's partial. It just pushed them back to their former defensive lines, but it's not like that's not game changer. But there is real panic in Zaporizhia. People are getting out because they understand that the offensive could be coming at any point. And then finally, the last article is about Chris Christie calling Trump a puppet of Putin. Now, I don't think he's a puppet of Putin. I don't think that's actually what it is. I think Trump is a puppet of Trump's ego. And so, and it happens to align with Putin like Putin. That wasn't intentional. It happens to align with Putin. Putin is not pulling the strings. They just happen to have perceived mutual interest, to my understanding. But Trump has not been helpful at all in this. Trump said, I don't think in terms of winning and losing. I think in terms of getting it settled so we stop killing all these people. And he added, I want everyone to stop dying. Well, that's like saying, I don't think of it as a mugging. I think of it as charity. No, it's still a mugging. You can't just redefine it. So Christie called President Trump a quote, coward and a, quote, puppet of Putin. Now, Chris Christie is running for president, and he was in Trump's cabinet, and he is using hyperbolic language. So don't think that his calling him a puppet of Putin actually means that. This is, political season, and George Bush called Reagan's economic plan voodoo economics. While they were in the race running against each other, and then he became Reagan's vice president. So it's hyperbolic, so don't take too much of it, but calling Trump out on that is the right thing to do. Trump is just, I don't know why he's taken a line that he has, other than he just thinks I can make a deal, but no, we don't want you to make a bad deal, and the kind of deal that settles this without Ukraine being able to have justice. And I think that's where, the dividing line is between people who think, yeah, just stop it, and people who think, no, Putin and Russia must be punished so that this doesn't happen again. Okay, so that's where we are. That's the last article I want to cover. It's been a big week. It's been a big 2 weeks between the drone attack in the Kremlin, and then the Victory Day parade, and then everything going on around that, and Bakhmut still holding Zaporizhia. There's a lot. All right, thank you for your time. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.